Hello everyone, welcome to Sequence of Instructions. Thanks for joining me. In this video, we're going to be learning about loops. There are three main types of loops we're going to be covering. They are the for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop, which is a variation of the while loop that is not used as often but can be very helpful. If you're not familiar with what a loop is sort of like a condition. If you haven't seen our video on conditionals, I recommend you go check it out. You'll remember in a condition, there's this if-else sequence, right? So there's this if some condition's true, you do this code, and if it's not true, you do whatever's in this else block. So this is the if block, right between these curly braces. This is the else block. So a loop is similar to a if block that is run repeatedly. So for as long as some condition is true, your code will loop through whatever's between the curly braces of your loop. So that's an easy way to think about it. It's like a variation of the if condition of the conditionals that runs repeatedly. The difference between these three loops is merely a matter of syntax. That means you can really just learn one of them and be able to replicate the functionality of all three. But for shorthand, to be precise, it's important to know all three. So let's start with the easiest one. I'm going to start with the while loop. The while loop simply says, while some condition is true, do what's between the curly braces. So here you see how it directly reflects what I was saying before about the conditional. There's some while, there's some Boolean expression. You're going to write some code in here, whatever it is, it's going to be evaluated as a Boolean. And if that Boolean is true, it's going to not only enter the loop, it's going to, after each iteration of the loop, reevaluate this Boolean. So if I say just true here, once my code enters this loop, it's never going to get out because it's going to do whatever's in here. It's going to find this closing curly brace. It's going to come back to the top up here. It's going to say, all right, well, while I'm going to reevaluate this condition and it is again true, so I'm going to do this again. So while true loop is never going to exit. Similarly, if you did while false, this is never going to run. So my code is going to come down here. It's going to see while, okay, what condition am I going to evaluate? False. False is not true, and it's never going to enter this loop. Right? So loops are only really useful. In both those situations, your computer program is not going to work properly. In a while false, it's not going to run this code, which might be important. And in a while true, it's never going to stop running this code, which means you're going to have your machine's going to lock, the program's going to lock up, and it's going to fail. You've probably seen that happen in other programs. Your program quits unexpectedly. There's some error message. That often happens when there is an inescapable loop. So the way to really make these work is to have a condition that changes according to the number of iterations of the loop. So an easy one we're going to do is we're going to say var x equals 10. I'm going to say while, we're going to have a value 10. We're going to have a counter, that starts at 0. And I'm going to say while counter is less than, we'll call this the limit. X isn't a good name. So we're going to have our limit of 10, our counter of 0. While the counter is less than the limit, so this first iteration, counter is 0, limit is 10, 0 is less than 10, we're just going to print counter to the screen. And now again, if this is all we wrote, 0 is less than 10, it's going to print 0, it's going to finish, it's going to come back, 0 is still less than 10, it's going to print 0, it's going to come back. You'll see it's never going to exit. So what we want to do at the end of this is to say counter equals counter plus 1. And what this is going to do is the first time through, it's going to print 0, counter is 0. Then it's going to set counter to 0 plus 1, which is 1. It's going to come back up to the top here. It's going to see, all right, is 1 less than 10? Yes, it is. It's going to print 1. At the end, it's going to go to this line. Counter is equal to 1 plus 1, which is 2. And you'll see our counter is going up until at some point it'll say counter will be 10. So it'll print 9 here. 9 will be 9. Counter equals 9 plus 1, which is 10. It's going to say, come up here. Is counter, which is 10, less than 10? No, and it'll leave the loop. So just to make this extremely clear, I'm going to have a start. Excuse me. And at the end, I'm going to have an end. And now if I run this, I should see start 0 through 9 printed. 10's not going to print because 10 is not less than 10. It won't enter the loop here. So I should see 0 through 9 printed, and then it should print end. And there you see it. So we started up here. We then ended our loop, where we repeatedly did this code, which is printing the value of counter changing each time, 2, 3, 4, all the way up until 9. Counter then became 10. 10 is not less than 10. It exited, and we printed end to the console. So that just shows you the power of a loop. We're now going to change this into a for loop. So for loops, this idea of a loop having a specific number of iterations, counting sort of how many iterations you do, that is exactly what a for loop is for. So we're going to change this into a for loop. I'm going to do it right below it. The syntax for a for loop is a little more complicated, but it essentially goes like this. For, there's your block, similar to the while. But in this condition, that was weird, JSPin's trying to be helpful. In this condition, you're going to both declare your counter, and you're basically going to be declaring your counter variable, your counting condition, and your exiting condition. So these three lines, this line, this condition in here, and this line, are all put into the parentheses up here. So we'll say it's common to use the I variable for your counter, your index. Say var I equals 0, you end it with a semicolon. So first it is you're declaring your counter. Next you say the condition, while I is less than 10. So this is the condition similar in the while loop. It's going to be evaluated as a Boolean. It's going to evaluate this each iteration to determine whether it should enter the loop or exit. And then you have your terminating condition, not your condition, your terminating statement, which says how to affect your counter I. So in this case, we'll say I equals I plus 1. No semicolon on that one. So again, it's three parts. Declaring your counter, basically setting your counter variable. You don't have to say var I. If you already have I defined, you can just set the value of I, but I don't have I defined, so I have to declare it also. Then you define your condition of whether or not to enter or exit this loop. And last, how you want to treat your counting variable after each iteration. So here again, we'll just console.log I. We'll do another start and end here. Call it start for, end for, just so we can see the difference. All right, so again, when I run this code, this original loop is going to run, and then my for loop is going to run. All right, so let's see how they differ. They don't differ. Let me clear this. Okay, so they don't differ at all, which is kind of the point. But you can see that the amount of code required to write this one is a little shorter than this one, right? Like, because these statements are included in the actual definition of the for loop, it reads a little more nice. It reads a little easier. It's a little smaller, but they're functionally identical. And so you'll see this first one. Here's our start and end from our while loop, just as we reviewed before. We start our for loop, and it does the exact same thing, 0 through 9, and then ends. So that's the for loop. I'm going to do one more down here, which is the do while loop. The do while loop is identical to the while loop, except it will always run at least once. So here you say do, there's no condition. I'm going to hide this so we don't get distracted here. Okay, we're down here. Let me put some breaks in. Okay, so here we say do, and then you put your condition at the end. So the while loop and the for loop were both like the if statement, where it was the keyword, then your condition, then the brackets. The do while is different. It's saying do this, whatever's in between here, and then evaluate whether you should go back into it. So just to really drive that difference home, a while loop will evaluate first and decide whether or not to do it at all. A do while will do it first and then decide whether to do it again. And it seems like maybe a trivial difference, but it's actually extremely useful sometimes to like make something happen once and then decide if you want it to repeatedly happen. So here we'll just do something simple. We'll have our, again, we'll do our counter 0, our limit is 10. And we'll say no matter what, I want you to print the counter. So no matter what happens, I want you to print the counter, and I want you to add 1 to it. Oh, not console.log. What am I doing? Counter equals counter plus 1. So no matter what, we're going to print the counter, and then we're going to evaluate counter is less than limit. So if, oh, sorry, what am I doing? It's called a do while loop. So you guys missed my mistake there, but do is the keyword up here, and then it follows the syntax of the while loop. So you have to have the keyword while in between your ending curly brace and your opening parenthesis. Okay, so you log the counter, then we add one, and then we evaluate it. And now when we run this, you'll see it does work exactly the same 0 to 9, but the way that it's different here is, what if I said my limit was 0? Okay, so let's see, I'm going to get rid of this here. Come up to here, sorry. Alright, so here I have my, here if I make my limit 0, we're going to do our while loop first. This is going to demonstrate the difference between a while and a do while. Our while loop, if we said our limit was 0 and our counter is 0, the while loop is never going to enter, because 0 is not less than 0. They're equal. So 0 is not less than 0. This doesn't run. Now, the do while loop, with the exact same conditions, the exact same code in it, 0 is not less than 0. This is still a false condition. But when we run this, you'll notice it does print 0. And this again reinforces what I was talking about before about it doesn't evaluate this condition until after it does the code. So even though this condition is false, it's going to do this code first and then decide if it should do it again. And that's really the big difference between these three loops. The last thing I want to point out is if you find yourself in an infinite loop, or sometimes you might want to go through 10. Let's say my limit is 10 here, my counter is 0. But if I find the value 5, that's good too. I want to break out of the loop. So what I can say here is if counter equals 5, here's just some logic inside. You can have whatever regular code you want between these curly braces. In this case, I'm using a condition. So I'm going to say if counter is 5, I want to break. Okay? So break is a keyword that says I want to exit my loop. This is true for all loops, for loops, while loops, do while loops. So I can evaluate internally some condition, and I can decide if that condition is true, I want to exit my loop early. And so now if we were to run this, it should go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it'll print the 5. And then let's check, all right, is it 5? Yep, break out of the loop, and not do the rest of this. So even though counter never becomes high enough to make this condition false, we're going to exit the loop early. Break out of our loop. And there it is, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can break. If we didn't have this in a condition, we just put this at the top here, it would be as if you never had a loop at all. Even if this was true, whether it was true or not, it would just break immediately and none of this code would ever reach. Here even JSpin notices that. That's pretty cool. So JSpin realizes this is unreachable code because you break immediately, you never actually run that code. Okay, and the very last thing we do before this video gets too long is, in addition to exiting a loop early, you could skip over iterations on a condition as well. And that's called continuing. So here we'll say if counter equals 5 again, we're just going to continue. And continue means break once, basically skip this iteration of it, and check it again. So actually there's going to be a bug in here. I don't really want to get into, but let's do the adding first, just to avoid this bug. Basically, if you keep continuing, you're never affecting your counter. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the counter first, and then we're going to exit, and then we're going to evaluate whether it's greater than 5 or equal to 5 or not. Okay, so what we should see here is it should print starting with 1 now because we add 1. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not going to print 5 because once it equals 5, it's going to continue. Continue meaning skip that one, and it's going to print 6 through 9. All right, so let's see it through 10. Right, because you add first and then 10. Okay, so you'll notice 5 is missing here. And so it went 1, 2, 3, 4. It added to 5. It saw this. Okay, is 5 equal to 5? Yes, it is. Continue basically says pretend this is the end of our loop statement and go back up. And so now counter is 5. 5 is less than 10. We set it to 6, and then we print 6. So because this was after our continue statement and the condition for our continue is true, this didn't run for the value 5. So that just covers loops. There's for loops, while loops, do while loops. They're all slightly different, but they also can be used similarly. Breaking is exiting the loop entirely. Continuing is skipping this iteration of the loop and evaluating it again a next cycle. So that's loops for you. I know this video ran a little bit long. I appreciate you all sticking with me. If you have any questions about any of these topics we covered, or if you come across some weird uses of loops in along the way and you're curious about how they actually work, feel free to leave some comments. In the next video, we'll be covering arrays, which really make loops extremely powerful, as it really brings out the power of the loop. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.